Hello all, it is Corey from Unified Masters. So today I wanted to talk about just a theme that's coming up in my field that I think is extremely relevant at this time for what's going on in the world, and that is about judgment and making sure we're being mindful of releasing judgment from our field, judgment of self, judgment of others. But this one is going into judgment of self and judgment of being the light. And after this, I'm going to do a little activation towards releasing this from the field, making sure we let go of these storylines and these narratives that are actually, they're old ones, but they're being recreated in a new light right now. And it goes like this. So as we are seeing out in the collective, and we've been seeing it for quite some time, is the full collapse of these systems, the old systems, so the 3D systems. A part of witnessing this collapse is actually full veil removal of the systems and seeing them for what they are. Basically, what's going on is the amount of light that planet Earth is holding right now, that Gaia is holding, everything is amplified and magnified. So, all of the distortion, all of the discord, all of the chaos, all of the control is just going to be amplified and magnified. The terror, the inequality, all that stuff is going to be amplified and magnified and shown to us, because that's what the 3D system was. That's what it drove upon. That was what the battery power was for it. Okay. So what is really been going on with me is showing up as the light, bad things occur. When I show up in my raw, authentic form and I talk, or I speak openly about, what's going on with me, there's a persecution that occurs, whether it's at a micro level, individual, or at a macro level. And this is something we really have to be mindful of right now, because basically, like the ramp up to the full collapse, that's like the full blown collapse we're in as of the 2020 timeline. I found it very easy to show up as the light because I showed up as the light, I spoke my truth, and we were still in the middle of anchoring a lot, and it seems that people were so distracted, kind of like with other things going on, that as we were doing our part of the work of anchoring, holding the crystalline grid within, connecting, speaking more, for me, for a while, there wasn't a lot of quote-unquote persecution. And then as we started to hit the quarantine phase, and even pre-quarantine, we started to notice this ramp up in energies, because everyone's shadows was getting triggered off. We had numerous activations that went through that triggered off all these events that are occurring right now. And so what's been kind of coming through as lately for me is that there is a pattern showing up, which is that when I show up as the light, something bad happens. And kind of creates this persecution or this judgment of self that, hey, when I show up as myself authentically, something bad happens to me, or it happens to the collective. And why it's really important right now to release this judgment is because it's stopping us from showing up in our authentic form. When we look at the 3D systems that were around, and we're looking at like the Archon systems, okay, those are heavily held by religion. And I'm talking about principalities of dogmatic structures, Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, maybe to a certain degree. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to focus on those two because those are the only two that I really see when we look at the agents of the game that are forcing reincarnation, that are bringing about these Armageddon timelines and the fire and brimstone. If you do not follow our rules and our laws, there will be hell to pay. If you do not follow our structure, there will be hell and damnation. Also, when we start to look at what these systems fed into with the Antichrist prophecies, the fueling of vaccinations, the fueling of discord, the fueling of RFID chipping and tagging us, turning us into even more enslaved sheep. These systems are heavily held by the church, because it's all the same agents once again. So because of that, with our societies being backed by religion, what it's kind of created for us is this: okay, when I show up against the grain, which is the light in its form, because the grain before, the grain of society was sheep herding. It was following the rules. It was abiding by the laws, the man-made laws, not universal laws, following the man-made laws, or God-given laws created by this big nasty distorted force that would come down and send us to hell for not following their ethics and following their morals versus our authentic truth. And so what we're starting to see, or I'm starting to see, is that, hey, when I show up as this light being and I speak my truth, which is against the grain, there's a lot of backlash. Right now, too, we have a lot of people that are diving down the rabbit hole. So because of that, there's a lot of judgment over what is true, what isn't true, thus blocking us from being the light and showing up as us. There was a comment that came up the other day on a post that was put up about me doing a light language course, and someone said it was an Anunnaki language, and it's just like, right now it's a big blame game going on over what is true, what isn't true, because once again, we've been living in an inverted matrix. We've been living in a very in a system that has been controlling us and torturing us, and of course it's on the way out and it's collapsing, and there's a lot of beautiful things ahead. So I'm mentioning this not to replay the old and to loop back into that, but to feed into the new. And so part of that is having to release judgment and showing up as the light. We're seeing it right now in the collective. Okay, so we came out here, we anchored all these energies, we anchored the grid, 5D New Earth is here, it's gonna be beautiful. And then what did we see? We started to see a ramp up in the forces that be trying to stop us, because we already won, but they're gonna take it down to the tooth and nail, they're gonna take it down to the last breath. So what starts to happen, that I've been seeing internally, and I know others are facing this, is like this. What we're doing is we're looking at what's going on in the external versus going on within the internal of what is occurring. So if we look at the formula, okay, I show up as the light, I anchor these energies. Everyone's really happy and proud that 5D Earth is coming, but then the outcome, the end of the equation is, incidents like George Floyd, and protests, and looting, and people losing their jobs, and COVID-19. And you see what it's starting to do is it's creating a pattern now within the field that, hey, when I show up as the light and I anchor these beautiful energies, this collapse occurs, and now there's a judgment of, hey, if I show up in the light, what's going to happen is hell and damnation. Granted, so the light is exposing the 3D systems and the old systems, and of course part of the exposure of the old systems is the entire world waking up to what is really going on. So I recognize, for me, when I woke up, when I first got my first Kundalini, all hell broke loose in my life. It was complete chaos and discord, because that's what happens. It's like, wake up, all of a sudden, boom, you got all these things to work out, and then over a period of time, things settle, we come back in, it balances out, it smooths out, and then we're there. Recognizing that we do live in a world of duality, in a world of polarity, and that's on its way out. Part of what I've mentioned as the snow globe theory is, in order to create change, we have to shake up the snow globe. There's the flurry of chaos, and then everything settles. So what I have to be mindful of, and I feel like all of us to some level and some degree need to be mindful of, is that this is a course that needs to just play out. It's the way it is. We came here, we anchored, we brought in the templates, we brought in the light, and now the light is streaming 24/7. We have constant blasts of photonic light and plasma energy coming through all the time now. So what's going to happen is the exposure, since we've all gone through our own individual, dark nights or illumination phases, we've gone through our own awakenings, we can recognize like, hey, this is what happens. This is a part of awakening. This is a part of coming out of our sweet slumber, is that our dream spell is shaken up. Our world is completely turned upside down. What the universe essentially does with awakening is turns me 180 degrees upside down and shakes all the lint out of my pockets, because all that lint and all that stuff that I was carrying is a heavy weight that stops me from flowing, and it keeps me out of my true, authentic, organic nature, which is just frequency and form. So being mindful that we don't create a judgment of ourselves when this starts to occur, and recognize that that's just the way it works. And that we need to just allow the things to play out the way that they're going to play out. This even now ties into the protesting, okay? If we can take this up to the highest level, we can see that what is occurring, they kind of want it to occur, okay? The old systems are very much so fed off of fear. They're fed off of fear, they're fed off of anger, they're fed off of discord, okay? And it's not just the energy. We look at the news. When was the last time you turned on ABC News and you saw an entire report that was beautiful and happy, okay? That is all set up in such a way because it's connected to the old systems. And so if they see a majority of the collective conscience, clicking unsubscribe, not giving into the fear, not giving into the anger, not creating discord or creating war, what starts to happen? They're going to start to amplify it, because that's how those structures, okay, were built, and that's how those beings got their power, was from that, okay? This is all tied into the adrenal gland. This is tied into a lot of those old systems, and the agents that fueled those systems and how they got their power, okay? So for me, a big teaching of mastery, okay, and granted, I've got a long way to go. It's been a big wake up call. Is I got a long way to go to reach that level. But the level that I've reached within it as the soul's journey in here now is recognizing the importance of neutral point observer. So what that means is that my external doesn't dictate my internal condition. My internal condition dictates my external condition. So I have to be mindful of where my awareness goes, because it can knock me off my trajectory. Think about it, okay? COVID occurs. We all have an opportunity to go within. We have a choice point. Our choice point is, are we going to focus on the external crumbling, or are we going to focus on our internal condition and what we can do to better our lives and to get more into alignment? And we're seeing that. Like, even in my own area, we're seeing a lot of moving trucks. A lot of people are getting up and they're moving. They're changing jobs. A lot of people are reflecting. Beautiful. Okay. So now we've got the directors that come down and go, well, everyone's getting into alignment. Everyone's getting into the joy. Everyone's waking up. Let's distract them. Let's distract them with a horrible travesty that is going to definitely fuel some chaos. Let's loop them. Let's recreate an old scenario to see how they handle it, okay? And then let's think about it. Protest. Test. Let's test them. Let's see what they do. Are they going to give in to the old, or are they going to give in to the new? Part of this, one way we can look at it, is the controller beings stepping in to throw us off. Or we can also see it as source giving us an opportunity to create a choice. Are we this peace and this love and this unification that we're trying to create? How are we going to handle this level of mastery when the entire world is crumbling around us? This is what happens with initiations, okay? Initiations are, hey, we want you strong, we want you awake, we want you empowered. But because of that, we have to put you through some situations that aren't necessarily fun, and that can be quite painful to pull the master out of you. Now, I recognize that there was a life lost. Okay, and I didn't want to go into this, but it's coming up now because, frankly, this is a very, very sad instance that occurred with George Floyd, and as being a Caucasian male, I feel like I do not have a right to speak up about certain things. But I also just wanted to stay out of it because I don't want to fuel into it. Frankly, blessings to his family, and much love sent out to his family and to his soul. But I also recognize about soul contracts, and that everything that's occurring right now, anyone that's you know, been in the protests, George Floyd, the cop, you know, or the officers that were a part of that, I do know about soul contracts and what our souls sign up to go through to help awaken people. Let's even look at Kobe Bryant and look at all the people that have passed away recently. Even the actor from the Thor movies. You know, I know intuitively that their souls signed to go through that because they wanted to help wake up humanity, and they wanted to help to be a part of the change. And everyone's role as a part of the change is different, and some people serve as catalysts. Okay, serve as catalysts where they choose to go through certain situations to expose the system and to create the change. And while it's honorable, I feel like it's unnecessary, because I feel like us as humanity can do a lot better job of loving one another and getting the point by going within and really stepping into our alignment and stepping into who we truly are, and recognizing that we are all just reflections of source, looking at one another to become a more powerful creator, right? So because of that, when we can step into that realization, we stop hurting one another, and we stop hurting ourselves. And that's just me, but that does take a while to get to, and I don't expect that to happen overnight. But, you know, all of these things that are playing out right now, I feel like us as light workers need to go within and just really focus on the new that's occurring, and recognizing that nothing is set in stone, okay? This is even now going into like the Antichrist prophecy and the Nostradamus stuff, because I've been seeing this pop up, people talking about like, who's the Antichrist? Is it Bill Gates? Is Donald Trump the Antichrist? Is, you know, and starting to dive into that stuff. Well, the creation of the Antichrist happened once again to create an Armageddon timeline, to create destruction, to create the fire and brimstone thing, okay? We don't have to feed into that, okay? A big part of this waking up is that we, you know, I feel like, so my brother said it to me the other day. He said, you can go down the rabbit hole, but every time you go down the rabbit hole, you come back up and you're covered in rabbit shit. And it's very true. It's very, very true. While I feel like it serves a role for expansion, it's also recognizing that all of those little holes are filled with rabbit poop, okay? That is not true joy and true love and true harmony. And granted, that exposure brings awareness to things to where we can start to work out our distortions, and you know, we start to not click subscribe to things so easily, and we start to not become so gullible or become so vulnerable. What it does is it helps us to sharpen our tool of discernment. But it's also recognizing that when we start to dive into those things, we start to play out those timelines. When it comes to like the Nostradamus stuff and the Antichrist and the prophecy, predictive programming, let's go ahead and drop this in the collective conscience and let's have them create it. When you start to recognize that you are in full control over the creation of the reality and the timeline in which you choose to exist on, you don't have to give into those things anymore. And, you know, a part of this deconstruction is recognizing that, hey, the deconstruction is occurring right now, all right? Everything is crumbling, which means that a lot of BS is gonna occur. We knew 2020 was gonna be the wave of change. We knew for a fact, and it had been reported from the get-go from many people, that 2020 was going to all be about change. Some change is comfortable, some change is uncomfortable. To wake humanity out of their slumber, their sweet little slumber, like all of us were in for a while. Some of us came in super awake and then we're just heavily programmed. Part of that is that things need to be shaken up. And then when the shakeup occurs, we have the choice point. How are we going to act? Are we going to act in discord, or are we going to act from the neutral point observer? Neutral point observer is becoming unaffected by what's going on external. Once again, the external doesn't govern the internal governs the external. So my awareness, okay, the illumination of the points in my mind on which I choose to focus on is what I create into my reality. So if I see disaster occurring and my focus is on disaster, what do I end up calling forth into my area? What do I keep on calling forward into the collective? What do I keep calling forward into my life? More disaster. Discord, focus on discord. This is where we start to become mindful and become aware of where our awareness is going and what we're trying to create into our reality. This is focus. This is being unaffected by the directors of the show. And us taking our power back is becoming the director of our own show. So what do I want to create? What do I want to focus on? Not to say that those things aren't occurring and that we're bypassing them, okay? So there's a big difference. It's not that we are becoming avoidant because we don't want to see it. But when it occurs, if it pops into our reality, we recognize it and we go, okay, here's my choice. Do I want to feel into that more? Do I want to go riot? Do I want to go protest? What's it bringing up within me, okay, emotion-wise? And the big one, okay, that we're all going through right now at some level or some degree is anger. Humans have not been properly told how to process anger, okay? And it's like this. This is the way it's been for me. People will be like, hey, don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry. Okay, well, can you tell me how to process anger healthily? Can you tell me and show me a healthy way to process anger? And a lot of people couldn't for me growing up. You know, I went to many different people and still to this day, it's one thing I go through. How do I process anger in a healthy way? Some people do it through expression, through art. Some people do, like, you know, I'm all for the peaceful protests. If you have something to say, you know, it's like the Desiderata poem, you know, speak your truth clearly and quietly. And not quietly, but speak it clearly and peacefully, okay? Because truth, this is not a suppression of truth and a suppression of what we need to communicate, okay? That's a good way to process anger. But we don't have to go start tearing down the economy. We don't have to start tearing down, you know, tearing down private businesses and small businesses. You know, these people that have worked hard their entire lives to build their businesses, we don't have to start destroying their buildings. They didn't do this, okay? They didn't. Now, granted, we could start to get into that. Some big organizations, you know, fuel this, and we can start to dive down that rabbit hole, but we don't need to. The idea is that, and Martin Luther King said it, you know, we don't fight hate with hate. We fight hate with love. We solve the discord through love. That's how we become alchemists, right? And so a part of this, okay, this whole thing, bringing this back around to judgment, is that when these things occur, okay, we really have to double down on love. Love of ourselves and love of others. And this is a big one I have to go through. I have to love myself for myself. Okay, so part of that is that when the world starts to go X, Y, or Z, I don't feed into that. I go into the complete polar opposite to bring the balance to the experience. Okay, now I bring the balance because it's all about breaking out of the karmic loop. We don't have to play into the karma game anymore. We don't. We, as conscious creators and conscious holders of this reality, you know, because once again, we are not only the creators of this reality, but we hold this reality together by being here. We have free will, which a lot of people don't recognize. It's that we have free will, we just have to command it into being, and we have to decree it and declare it every single day, because there's a lot of presumed consent for these things to occur. So once again, what we have full control over is the karmic looping cycles, by saying, I'm not going to feed into that anymore. I'm not going to feed into the karma. I'm not going to feed into the agent's game. I'm not going to feed into cycles. I'm not going to feed into reincarnation. I'm not going to see. This is all fueling that old system. Okay, this is that old agent's game that they're still trying to play out to see if it can stick, and it can't. Those systems have been broken down, but they're going to try to get enough of the collective on board to be able to keep them alive, because it kept us stuck here, and it kept the fear going. It kept all those loops occurring that kept us fenced in. And so now, as a process of this expansion, is releasing judgment of ourselves for living in those systems, releasing judgment of ourselves for how we react to the world crumbling, releasing judgment of showing up as the light, and recognizing that part of us being the agents of change is that we have to stand out. And when we stand out, sometimes our light, a lot of the time, our light will trigger off other people's stuff. And it's going to trigger a collapse of those systems that are crumbling still. And we're going to see more of it, more of it, and more of it exposed while we are still growing through the process of transition. We're going through that void right now of the collective figuring out what it needs to figure out. And so what it can do is create this judgment that, hey, when I show up as the light, look at all these bad things that occur. Okay. But what we are not seeing is what's on the other side of that change. And when we keep focusing on bringing in more of that new, like we are doing this because it's creating peace and harmony, that's why we're doing it. And we have to focus on that we've won, that the light is here, that it's not leaving. It's not going to leave this planet. And the frequency is going to keep raising until everything settles. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. So a lot of us have to buckle in and just focus on our love and our joy and making sure that's what we're calling forth into our reality. And really not paying attention to the news and not paying attention to what is going on as things crumble. Because as we are aware, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be on the other side of this transition, and there's people that are serving as catalysts in the transition. You know, we have people that are going to be losing their homes. We're going to have people that are, going to be moving. We're going to have people that are going to be passing away. It's unfortunate, but it's a part of the change. I feel like a lot of this judgment too that's occurring is that for me, I had a expectation, like I was going to wake up, it's going to be 5D Earth. We're all going to be playing with unicorns. We're all going to be, playing with magic out in the grass, and it's going to be sunshine, rainbows and puppy parts. Unfortunately, during this time of transition, it's not, because there's more things that need to be activated. We got a lot of AI scripts that need to be triggered off, and a lot of mind control that needs to be triggered off to go. Not being triggered off so we can, create more of it, but it needs to be triggered off so people wake up and heal. We have a lot of traumas that need to come to the surface, a lot of wounding. Think about how many billion people on Earth we need to wake up. And so a part of that is that we need catalytic events for the wake-up call. Do we really need catalytic events? No. If we went within, if we all consciously, as an entire species, went within and looked at our patterns, looked at the family patterns, looked at our own programming and our own traumas and our own wounds, and we healed them, this wouldn't need to happen. But unfortunately, we live in a distracted society that's waking up more and more. And so a part of that waking up is that those catalytic moments when we upload the truth of what's going on to the collective conscience, okay? And then it's accessible to more people, and then people stop feeding into it. This is a big part of what's going on, is that we're uploading more and more truth through the crystalline grid structure into the collective conscience, and then because of that, more people are going to see events occur and are going to intuitively know what's really going on, or knowing that there's something more going on than meets the eye, and their soul and their heart's going to tell them not to trust exactly everything that's happening. And so, unfortunately, this is just the way it is, and we have to be mindful that we're not feeding into that. But we're not judging ourselves for what's occurring, because someone's unconscious programming is not my fault. Now, at some level, being a creator and recognizing we're all one in this person is an extension of me, it is. So in that instance, if you see something playing out, really hopping into like Ho'oponopono work, which is something that Samantha and I have been doing a lot. I see something occur and I don't like it. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. And just doing that over and over until we start to clear and consciously clear what's going on, especially right now, being a Caucasian male and seeing what's occurring. I have to do this with my familial patterning. Not my family, because my family aren't that way at all, but more of just, living in the skin of a white male and having to go, okay, on behalf of, my culture, or on behalf of my skin color, please forgive me. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. And stating that to the world, okay? Recognizing, though, that we all have a role that we play in this whole experience right now, and we all have a part. Okay, so part of this unification is that we are going to see division amplified into our reality, so we fix it. And while, this is how I look at it, is like, if we have a natural response as a survival mechanism, okay, so something kicks off and we all split up. So if we look at like, a bomb going off, bomb goes off, and then, a crowd disperses, or we hear a loud bang. Let's use this context because I don't like using that one. But as a species, we have a survival mechanism. If we're all coming together as one and we hear a bang, okay, and we all start to separate, we have to change the patterning by coming closer together. This is by coming in as one, as a species, as a human species, okay? Recognizing we all bleed the same color, we all breathe the same oxygen, we all feel emotions, really finding those commonalities versus the differences between one another, because this is what happens. Part of the being able to see our own division and our own separation is a magnification of that. So then we don't fuel into the separation anymore, and we start to unify more and more and more. It's just the way it works. So in this world, if you're working with your creator, you're working with your guides, or you're working with your ancestors, and you ask for strength, okay, what are they going to give you? They're going to give you a lot of situations for you to pull your strength out of you. If we look at the building of a muscle, the muscle needs to get torn so the cartilage gets built, so this muscle becomes stronger. This is just the way of this reality. So a part of us unifying and coming together is we need to amplify all the distortions that are creating separation to separate us more. And we really, 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 really have to be mindful. Really have to be mindful right now of the way that this reality works. So when this happens, we go, okay, I see that right now this is pulling us closer together. Because we have a choice. We have a choice to, okay, there's separation occurring. There's more separation, more. And if we keep feeling that, what are we creating more into our reality? We're the masters here. We are the masters of the creation of the game. So what are we going to create for ourselves? Part of being an alchemist is being the offset. We're going to be that point of when things are going this way, we need to bring the pendulum back this way. So part of that is holding this vibration so we can bring everything back into balance. Because right now, everything is about balance. Everything is about balance. So when I see hate, I choose to love. When I see pain, I choose to show compassion and healing. When there's discord, I choose peace. It's not giving into that. Becoming the director of our reality is making sure that our awareness doesn't give into what they want us to be aware of, but what we want to become aware of within ourselves. And that is the primary fundamental emotion that we are holding throughout the day. So when I come into X, Y, or Z, stop, pull into the heart, open up the heart. Stop, come back to center, become neutral point, focus on myself, get into my joy. It's really important right now to survive this, because a lot of people aren't going to survive this, and we have to be okay with that. So part of this is dropping into the heart and knowing right now there's a great change, and I recognize that part of the orchestration is there's going to be discord. Part of the recognition is that there's going to be death. Part of the recognition is that there's going to be chaos, but I consciously choose as the creator of my reality not to click subscribe to that and to not give into that today. And for me, being sovereign and free means that the external doesn't dictate my internal condition. What it does is it is just a part of the movie, but I'm not giving into that. I'm not giving my energy into that. So part of that is that I'm going to release all contracts where I'm giving my energy and my power away to the external, and I call forth all of my energy and all of my power back to me now, because I am a free sovereign being. I disconnect from those systems consciously today. And in any time, space, or place in which I exist, if I'm feeding into those systems, I call all of that energy back to me now, because I am God, I am sovereign, I am free here in this reality. And this is being really conscious of what we're feeding our energy into. And I have to do this more now. Okay, feeding into my sovereignty and feeding into my freedom. What am I giving into? So with that, just as a result of everything we talked about, I wanted to go into a light language to release judgment from the field. Just a little activation to make sure that we are calling forth our sovereignty again. So I thank you all for sticking in with this. This whole thing was going to be about releasing judgment, and started to go into other territories. I told myself I wasn't going to, but obviously it needed to come up because it needed to be discussed. So I'm just clearing our field now. Extending this to all of our multi-dimensional connections and spaces, just clearing and cleansing the field. Connecting to the highest vibration of source. Connecting to the highest vibration of the crystalline grid. Opening up our heart fully. So we're now just going to focus on releasing the judgment from the field as showing up as the light. We're also going to focus on peace and harmony in our heart space, opening our hearts fully, calling forth the veil to be removed on what's really going on in our lives so we can be able to see clearly through our hearts and be able to focus on that highest trajectory and that highest timeline for ourselves and for the collective. Jiritia koru towale tamukuruka desi itiukamu charewa kolea tamu jusuru kuwa timiyaki chawuru tonaniaka chiritu suru tutona chichiaka kia tanukuru chawetiza atuma karukula twea nashi saru kamo tawe charutane kiawa. So releasing the solar plexus now. Kuande mahukuoki tarukushtari tizale tamu kanewa te chichichiaku zua si tialea tanua cheba ugato. Focusing on the liver. Kuanati kiki kia tuanata jeritia sazaza ukuru tale hitaniti ukaru tuana ukuashikia. And we're just going to move down to the kidneys and the adrenal glands now. So we're just going to closing all open doors in the kidneys and the adrenal glands. Disconnecting from any energies that are feeling off of our fear. Purifying the kidney and the livers, kidneys and the liver. Shua te makura tawe leo komatua chimate satona sharukoto wakiwakantoa chanatu dozale tamu kanewa chinizu akawe kura malo atwana u chare tua tiwisi ekia tanoko charutoto na titia tanele khando nashi haru utware uko shuane itale toama. Garuta nila de tosa wanto maketi chura kawe tani ki bukane chawate ne kanto shishiyoko tuana gogo na to na shishuru to la All right, so that's it, guys. Much love and respect to everyone out there. Remember that during this time right now, it's really to double down on the love of self and the love of others, the love of the experience, focusing on our joy. And this has been such an integral piece of my life and what I can do towards stabilizing at that point where that is my day-to-day experience. And so it's gonna be different for everyone. A lot of this is gonna be realignment, changing of relationships, changing of routine, changing of area, getting out into nature more, making sure that the place that you reside in is really conducive to your vibration. This might be having to rearrange and reorganize your house, throw things away. It's going to be different for everyone, but really focusing on that joy right now, which means that sometimes it might be having to get off social media while this plays out, shutting off the television, doing what you have to do for yourself to make sure that when it pops up in your reality, you can hold that neutral point and not give into it, and not want to go out and start to fuel and get into the discord. Once again, this doesn't mean to silence yourself. If you have something to say it. Speak your truth. There are constructive ways to handle this change, and there are deconstructive ways. And so a part of this is that when something occurs, okay, and we want to make a decision, part of that is slowing down, pumping the brakes, dropping into our heart, calling in our highest vibrational truth for that situation. Call it down, pull it down. And just call in that highest vibrational truth and then go, what is my highest available truth to land me on my highest timeline for what's going on right now? What is my choice? And the answer will come. And if it doesn't come, that means that you're not supposed to make a decision right then. So pump the brakes, and it will come when it's ready to arrive to you. So part of this is sitting back and allowing that answer to arrive. And if the answer doesn't come, that means that you're not supposed to make a decision. And just owning that. And then taking the next indicated step, focusing on yourself, focusing on your joy, creating something beautiful for yourself, instead of handling things in an old way. Okay. What is the newest way that I can handle myself here? Is this aligned with everything that I'm calling forward? Or is this aligned with the old structures and the old systems? And it's also being aware, what do the controllers want from me? These beings, if we look at them as something external of us, what would they want from me? Because that's probably not what I should be doing. Taking your vibration to the highest plateau that you can, the highest vibrational set point, and viewing the whole situation and the orchestration and why these things occur. And then going, okay, so is me going out into the streets right now and doing the rise up thing, what can this create? Not only for myself, but for the collective. Because best believe they want martial law. And they're not going to get it as long as we stay in our peace and we stay not non-reactive. Once again, that doesn't mean not to communicate and not to speak your truth. And I'm not saying to silence yourself, but I'm saying to be mindful of the way that we are showing up, because that ripple of what we do extends out and it affects others, many others. And being mindful of that. What are we creating for ourselves today? So let's stay in our joy, let's stay in our passion. Let's keep speaking up in constructive ways. Write poetry, write music. There's been a lot of discordant things that have happened over time, and people have turned to music, and they've written beautiful songs over it. Look at Imagine by John Lennon. Create something. Create something for yourself and invite in the new. So much love and respect to everyone out there. I love you all. If you haven't, go ahead and click subscribe. All the links are in the description box. Appointment calendar is wide open. Still got some spots open for the light language course that starts tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, please shoot me an email or go ahead and sign up. So I love you all. I'm going to disconnect my energies from this, and we'll just let this stay here. And I will see you in another moment of the now. Namaste.